Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today's video is going to be a bit of a different approach. Instead of looking over and talking about a whole game, I'm going to be talking about a specific part of Red Dead Online, Call to Arms. Call to Arms has been introduced into Red Dead Online quite a while ago and it comes with a mixed bag of emotions. Some people love Call to Arms as they really enjoy the concept of there being a constant wave of enemies coming. Some people are sort of in between, and I've even heard people say it's as boring as watching paint dry. I'm sort of in the middle in terms of this audience, but nevertheless today I'm going to be ranking the 5 maps that are currently in Red Dead Online. Starting off the list at the number 5 spot we have Dead Last Strawberry. Now most fans of Red Dead Online should have seen this placement coming miles away. Strawberry is a town that I found very unlikely to get its own Call to Arms map, but it did. And by god it is quite awful. Starting off with how much space the player actually has to roam around, it's not much. Strawberry is actually the second smallest map on this list. This is a map where I found myself going out of bounds quite easily and the most often. I mean literally reaching the area of when you go up a set of stairs a little bit to the side of the town, you're already out of bounds. Strawberry is a small town, perhaps one of the smallest, and to limit it even more makes it annoying to traverse around. The entirety of Strawberry is situated in between cliff faces, meaning that the whole surrounding area is high ground. This is the high ground that the enemy spawns on, and you can hardly even get up there without being out of bounds. As you can imagine, this puts you at a massive disadvantage as all the enemy is shooting down at you and it is a lot harder to aim. I mean, not that I really need to aim with a controller, but you know what I mean. Every single Call to Arms map on this list contains TNT for you to use, which can be actually really helpful on most maps, except from Strawberry, because in Strawberry it actually puts you at more of a disadvantage than an advantage. I mean sometimes the placements for this TNT are alright, like the one by the entrance gate and the stairs. However, if you dare to go near any of the TNT that's actually in between the houses and inside the town, then you found yourself near a death trap. The NPCs will shoot at these and you will be blown up. But now you might ask yourself, why don't you just stay away from them? They're probably in an awkward position anyway. Well, not really. For me at least, these were in really inconvenient spots where I wanted to shoot the enemy from. Unlike maps such as Blackwater, where it's not a big issue if you have TNT actually inside of the town because you can just traverse around it, in Strawberry there's simply not enough space and you can get caught out very easily. But I think that is enough on Strawberry, so let's just move on to the number 4 spot. At number 4 we have Fort Mercer. Fort Mercer is a bit of a disappointing map to me as I thought it would be a lot better. Obviously, as knowing this is a fort, surely this would be the best place to defend from, but unfortunately that is not quite the case. Starting off, Fort Mercer is an incredibly small map, in fact the smallest of the bunch. This already makes defending quite difficult as there isn't much space to move around in. Unfortunately, Fort Mercer is not a very locked up fort as the back and front gates are constantly open. This, especially in higher rounds, becomes a big problem. You can never just spend time defending one side of the fort, and you certainly can't just stay inside and defend like that because the NPCs can climb up the walls and come in through the back gate. With this, you can get cornered very easily unless you're playing with a group or you're in a good position. Unless you sort them out, the NPCs that actually fight for you are in quite awkward positions, usually inside the fort, instead of being on the walls where you're most likely to be. One thing I do like about this map is that the health, ammunition and the guns are in quite convenient places. The enemies that are attacking you have quite a lot of cover around Fort Mercer, such as a bunch of rocks, bushes and crates stacked on top of each other. But with that, you have a decent amount of cover too, so it kind of balances out. Now a big problem I found playing on this map is that when you're on the walls, which I was the majority of the time, it just becomes damn near impossible to shoot the enemies that are directly below you. And with this, you can get overwhelmed quite easily if the enemies rush the walls and make it to one of the gates. Overall, Fort Mercer isn't the worst, it's an improvement over Strawberry, but it definitely could be better. Coming in at number 3, we have McFarlane's Ranch. There really isn't too much to say about this one. It's just sort of your in the middle bog standard Call to Arms experience. But there is some things I like about this one. Out of all the Call to Arms maps, this is definitely the most open one. And because of that, it's really great to ride around on horseback, unlike almost every map on this list. And this is great because riding around on horseback is a very fun way of completing waves in Call to Arms. The TNT placements for this map are actually quite nice, There's a big one by the gate and a lot of smaller ones surrounding the ranch. There is some cover you can go to, but it is a little bit limited as the map is very open. I found it more worthwhile just riding around the outside, killing the enemies as they spawn in. Your line of fire does get a lot more restricted once the enemy actually reaches the inner workings of the ranch, but still it's quite easy just to ride around these buildings picking off any enemies you see. Whilst this is in the smallest map, it can still take time to go from one end to another. This becomes a lot more apparent in later rounds when the enemies start spawning on both sides. If you get the NPCs that you're defending with to get behind cover, they can become quite useful. McFarlane's ranch is an alright map, I like it quite a bit, but it's definitely not something I'd go out of my way to choose. Coming in next at number 2, we have Valentine. This map is not as open as McFarlane's ranch, but it's definitely more open than Strawberry and Fort Mercer. The original size of the actual Valentine has been made smaller, and it has been modified to have a lot of cover around the area. In this map there was still a decently large risk of blowing up when you're going around the outside, as there is quite a bit of TNT, but if you stay behind the cover and shoot from there, you'll be fine. Valentine is definitely not the worst map for movement, as there's quite a bit of alleys you can take for shortcuts, but on horseback it is quite limited, especially because of the TNT. Other than Strawberry, this is probably the hardest map to get high rounds in. The alleyways are great for your use, but also for the enemy. In between obstacles, especially to the left hand side of the town, you can get trapped quite easily. In this map you do have to make sure that you heal your allies after every round, because they are in exposed positions and die easily. Certain positions in Valentine can be quite difficult to defend, so I recommend using short to medium range weapons. Valentine is definitely one of the better options and gives you a well-rounded experience. And now, that just leaves us with the number 1 spot, which of course goes to Blackwater. Blackwater is just great in every way. TNT placements around the map are very useful and aren't death traps. Any type of weapon is useful on this map, may it be short range, medium range or long range. This is definitely the best map for sniping. Your allies kinda die rarely as they are in quite good positions. The map is huge, but there are so many ways which you can get around it. There's loads of cover, buildings and open areas. In Blackwater, all of the paths and streets are very wide, which makes it good for horseback. Just like in Valentine, you have the same element of alleyways to take shortcuts. You can relatively easily defend from either side, especially if you're on rooftops. Talking about rooftops, this is a massive advantage for this map. Being on some of the building's roofs is really useful as a vantage point when you're playing by yourself, as well as playing with others. Health packs and ammunition in particular are spaced out very nicely. When climbing the ladders to get to the rooftops, you are quite vulnerable, so that is a disadvantage, but when the enemy climbs up, they are also at a disadvantage. Any enemy that you see scurrying around on the rooftops are trying to get up the ladder are easy pickings. I also find it quite neat how the storm progresses on this map as the rounds continue. In general, if you make sure to pick out the right weapons, you go to the right locations, and you play well, you're going to get a high round out of Blackwater, and have fun while you're doing it. But anyway guys, that was my top 5 list for the Cool Arms maps in Red Dead Online. Let me know what you think of it in the description and tell me your own top 5. As always, thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.